Welcome back to the basement. Now, it's 3 weeks now to the next race, so it's time to get moving. We'll start today where we left off in the last video by putting the bottom end back together. Then we'll look to put the top end on, ignition, and then start looking at the new muffler for the expansion chamber, and then from there start getting our new rims together. So I've started lacing up the front wheel. I'm still waiting on parts for the rear wheel, but we'll have a look at that. Special methanol rated oil. Make sure on your crank you have your washer and spacer. I was just worried about this bearing being a bit proud after placing the crankcases back together. So I just quickly took it back to the press to just give it a quick tweak, just to make sure that we have good oil flow over the bearing in the slot. It does have relief cut into the back of the plate there, so that does assist it in flowing over the bearing, but it is important to make sure that surface is flush. Got Loctite, didn't I? Okay, one of my favourite parts, the sprung gear selector, which if you're not careful, will disappear. Now if you've never done this before, these tangs are different. So there's right side for each one. And also the little cylinders have a flat side and a rounded side. So the flat side goes into the spring. Easy as that. Now before I put the clutch and everything on, just want to make sure we're changing through the gears. We've got all the gears. There's no issues, because it gets trickier once everything goes back in. So got first gear, neutral, second, third, fourth, fifth. That's it. I'll leave it in neutral. Okay, there's a slight trick to reinstalling the Kickstarter that the Haynes manual doesn't cover very well. And that's, if you see, we have where the spring enters the shaft at the top. You want that pointing at the top of this tang, and that will give you the right amount of spring tension. I'll show you what I mean. So that's kind of, yeah, get that pointing horizontal. Make sure the stop locates and it lines up with your nylon gear. And I've gone one tooth too far there. See how it's pointing? You almost want that spring coming out horizontal. Put your spring into the stop. So we've got an angled washer. Okay, I had planned to reuse our lock washer here, but it's actually missing its lock tab. I've got one here off a old engine to show you what I mean. That tab is completely missing. So unfortunately, just for the meantime, I'm going to have to use this quite ugly one, but I will be looking to do a new clutch soon, so I'll order a new one and replace it at the same time. make sure yours has the tab. Ideally use a new one. Problem. Okay, now if you're running the TM clutch, there is a hole here for a pin which locates into this groove here. You can see in this bushing that the roller bearing goes on. And the purpose of that pin is to stop this spinning and becoming the bearing and making sure that it is the roller bearing spinning. Now I think it's quite minor and we could probably get away without this pin, but it's best that we follow how Suzuki intended. And unfortunately the engine I've taken this clutch out of does not seem to have this pin, which makes me think that they were probably running it without it. So I've got an idea. I'm going to quickly cut a pin out of this broken screwdriver I've got, and that should solve that problem. Wheel limit 3.2 millimeters. Still got plenty of life in these, still at 3.5. Loctite's pretty important on these motors because with the lightweight racing flywheel, they vibrate like crazy. Before next race, I don't have time to strip the frame, so we're just going to do a bit of a tidy up, clean, and a bit of black zinc paint. It is a race bike. At the end of the day, we'll do it properly next chance we get, but this will keep us going. That's not black. Okay, that's enough of how not to paint something. Now I thought while we've got the cylinder here, I'll just show you a bit about the TM cylinder and what we've done to turn it into a race bike. So first off, we've just got a standard Wiseco TS250 piston, and then we've drilled in two holes there to get oil flow to the bridge in the exhaust port. We've got the reasonably extensive work done to the inlet manifold to widen it up, change the inlet timing, make sure it all flows pretty smooth, and to run the 38mm TM400 carb. There's just a reference of the standard TS carb size. Then if we look at the ports, we haven't been too much we've done there. Unfortunately, this one already had some porting done when I got it, hence where they were heavily knife edged, but we've just tidied up the transfers. We've kept the standard porting layout, which is sort of the 70's eyebrows design, which isn't the best, but it works reasonably well. And then it's got a twin port transfer each side, and another shot of the exhaust port. Before we get back into reassembly, we'll just test our ring gap, which should be okay, but the Wiseco specs for this piston are 0.28 to 0.36. So we'll see how we go. 0.28 fits fine. .36, not quite. So probably about the 0.34. So we're within specification. I don't know if this is the same for everyone, but this job of putting our piston circlip ring back in always stresses me out. Always use a new one. Now my cylinder, being 50 years old and being pre-used, has a bit of damage, so just to be safe we'll put a bit of high temperature sealant on one side of the gasket. Like Terry's extremely successful TS250 racer from Australia, I don't run the copper head gasket, just a thin layer of high temperature sealant. It's rated up to 370 degrees Celsius, but does seem to work fine. Torquing these up to 25 Newton meters. I'll do a final torque check once the engine's in the frame. The vape ignition is super simple, works well, one fixed timing, which means you potentially could get more mid-range with a programmable ignition, but in the terms of racing it hasn't seemed to affect me much. I did race for a season just fine with the standard TM250 CDI box and ignition, but with the amount of effort and money you spend to get on racing, I didn't want to put my complete faith in a 50-year-old CDI box, so this is the ignition I've gone through, sticking with the theme of the bike of being simple and effective. I have this great spark plug dial gauge tool, but the only flaw to it is it doesn't fit when the engine's in the frame. Top dead center. Now I want 1.9 millimeters before top dead center. One and a half. 1.9. Okay, now our line to mark up with that line there, which is when the ignition fires. At 1.8. Two millimeters is about the maximum advance I want to run, and that equates to about 18 degrees before top dead center. With the timing I've just set now, on our dial gauge we are 1.8 millimeters before top dead center, which is about 17 degrees before top dead center. While there is potential power gain going closer to 2, there's also more heat. So for now I'll leave it at 1.8 and we can always adjust it at the track. I'll be checking it later with the timing light anyway. Yep, how true. So 1.8 millimeters. Oh, there goes the tissue. Muffler, and looking at it now, I have a bad feeling that my new paddock stand is going to be right in the way, but we'll soon find out. As predicted, right in the way, but I think we can make it work. So the plan here is to get our muffler approximately there. I think will look pretty good and give no clearance issues. And have a bracket up to this nut here. Now this is quite a weird thread, so I was going to use a bit of pipe to weld onto this nut and weld another nut in the middle with a rubber mount to then have a hanger down to the exhaust. So we'll mount the muffler first and then we'll work out how to connect it to the expansion chamber. So we've got a rubber mount that's going to go at the bottom of our hanger. And I was originally wanting to do the exhaust pointing up, but with the stand and the little bit of pipe I've got, and the fact that two-stroke exhausts, you should avoid bends when you can, I think we're actually going to cut it back to the end of the cone and then weld this on pretty straight, maybe a slight angle. That doesn't look too bad. So we've got a bit of tidying up to do on the hanger, round everything off. That's almost there, I just need to adjust that angle. Then we can tack it together. Looks good. Racy. While it needs a bit of tidying up, I think we'll call that a big success. Works with the stand, less bends in the exhaust, better flowing, and the new muffler looks great. Success. We're going to call it there for this week. Unfortunately, we didn't get to everything we wanted to get done. We're got most of the exhaust, but still got to weld that up, and didn't get onto our wheels. But the front wheel, as you can see, is pretty much ready to go. I just want to do one last check on the spokes and then put the brake together, and then we'll do the full rear wheel start to finish. So thanks again. 3 weeks till race day. There's going to be a lot happening. So as always, if you like the project, we'll see you next week.